Rome, 609 AD. More than 100 years after the fall of Rome, empire is a fading memory. Repeatedly fought over and plundered, the city is falling into ruins. Killers prowl by night. Far off in Constantinople, the emperor has other concerns as the church is beginning to flex its own imperial muscle. Enter Elric of England, young and beautiful, sexually uninhibited, heroic if ruthlessly violent, and hungry for the learning of a world that is dying around him. A deadly brawl outside Rome sucks him straight into the high politics of empire. Soon, Elric is involved in the race against time to find answers before he ends up as just another corpse in the gutter. The first entry in a 6-part series, Conspiracies of Rome, was originally published as a short murder mystery novel in the mid-2000s titled The Column of Focus. After positive reception, it was expanded upon and retitled as Conspiracies of Rome in the early to mid 2010s. Thereafter, a second new edition of the same title was re-released in 2021, the cover of which can be seen on the front of this video, and a link for which will be provided below. As of this time, it is currently available in paperback and Kindle format. It was authored by a Mr. Richard Blake, who is a British author from England. A link to his website will also be provided below for those who are interested. As mentioned prior, Conspiracies of Rome can best be understood as a work of historical fiction. For the uninitiated, historical fiction is a genre that sees an author place a fictional character and story within the space of a historical period or setting, whether that be a Roman legionary during the fall of the Roman Republic, a Confederate soldier fighting in the Battle of Antietam, a pirate sailing the high seas of the Caribbean, or any other example. To oversimplify things, from my perspective, historical fiction is effectively the act of making history exciting and new to readers, as textbooks and documentaries rarely seem exciting to most viewers. In terms of narrative structure, Conspiracies of Rome is best understood as a fictional memoir in which the entirety of the story is told and voiced through the perspective of the main character, our protagonist Elric. When we begin the novel, it starts with Elric as an elderly man, having lived to the ripe old age of 90 years old. He lives the last of his days sequestered away in a Christian monastery in northern England. He decides to put pen to paper and detail the records of his long and fruitful life for the benefit of future generations. It is only from there that we jump back nearly 100 years in the past to the early years of Elric's life. Over the course of my reading, 3 positive points stood out: a unique time period, an atypical protagonist, and atmospheric writing. Let's go down the list. Traditionally, most books of historical fiction are set in popular and well-known eras. These include periods covering the rise of the Roman Empire, the fall of Rome, the age of the Vikings, the Crusades, etc. But seldom few take place in the early Middle Ages, that period just after the fall of Rome, but before the arrival of the Vikings. And even fewer are set in the 7th century AD, which is, when one considers it, the point where antiquity ended and the medieval world began. This created a refreshing reading experience as I did not know what to expect, as this era was virtually unfamiliar to my historical knowledge. Moving on to the second point, what augmented this experience was the immersive writing, which was, in my opinion, one of the, if not the best aspect of Richard Blake's novel. He has a way with words, whether it be the descriptions of a crumbling ancient temple in the English countryside, or a desolate and flooded forum in the largely abandoned city of Rome. The author is able to paint a picture of a world where civilization is largely on the decline and barbarity is rampant and all around. Connecting to the third part, ultimately it is the protagonist, Elric, his character and personality that help tie the first two elements together. As the sole narrator, he provides an enlightening and lively commentary while occasionally giving out witty and foul mouthed remarks on people, places, and beliefs. As a character in particular, his secular outlook in life and appreciation of education served as points of connection for me as a reader, and might well do so for others who might otherwise be repelled by a completely accurate and authentic, you might say, recreation of 7th century society. All phrase aside, however, there were some points of contention that detracted from this work. The lack of a map for me, as a fan of historical fiction, did remove an opportunity to better follow with the story as the protagonist moves from England to Rome and back. It The lack of a map removed the opportunity to better follow the narrator and to better imagine the places that were being described in the story. A second thing to note is that the addition of new content in the recent edition did detract somewhat from the pacing of the story, given that the focus of this story moves into the middle half of this book into a sort of murder mystery. I did feel that there were one two conversation too many that did detract from the pacing and that could have been cut. Um, and to supplement this, a third point to make is that, ironically, the strongest point of this story, the fact that there's one protagonist who's providing the only point of view for the story, does have one trade off. In short, the strongest point of the story, the single point of view, did necessitate a sacrifice in the character development of others. Given that we are seeing the story entirely from the perspective of Elric, that means that the time given for him to develop as a character is time that is sacrificed on behalf of the other side characters. Here is my judgment. Overall, Conspiracies of Rome is an interesting read that has several points of strength. Its time and place of setting comes as a refreshing change. The immersive writing cements that change by making it come alive in the reader's imagination. Best of all, it's told from a character who readers will at least enjoy, if not love. A few issues with pacing and side character development aside, it's a welcome read for fans of historical fiction and murder mysteries. Now that this book review has been completed, it's time to hear from you, the listener. What were your thoughts on Conspiracies of Rome? Have you given it a read? And if not, will you plan on doing so in the future? Please feel free to provide any such feedback in the comment section below. If you would like more of these book reviews in the future, feel free to like and subscribe. It will be much appreciated. Thank you.